The longer you stay in a gaslighting situation, the more you're worn down, which makes it the harder to leave. And so it's a very dangerous thing to be part of if you are on the recipient end of somebody that is gaslighting you. So I want to start with 4 types of things that a gaslighter will do to begin to wear you down. It's to get you to begin to think maybe you're going crazy and that you can't trust your own self anymore, your own perception of reality. So number 1 is they can begin to play games with you to make you question your memory. So you might go home every night and put your keys in the same spot, and then one night they will remove the keys when you're not looking and hide them somewhere else. And you'll go looking for your keys, and you can't find it, and they won't admit that they've moved them. They will let you begin to wonder if you're losing your memory. So that is a very initial type of thing that they do to plant the idea that your memory maybe isn't as reliable. So that can go in various directions. The second thing is what we would call withholding, and that simply is you try to discuss something with them and you don't succeed in discussing it. So you try to discuss something with them and they act like they don't understand you, like you're not making sense. And they're basically saying, you're talking crazy. I don't get what you're trying to say. And the idea is to plant the idea in your mind that maybe you don't make sense. Maybe you are going crazy. So again, it's a planting of a thought. Or you start to talk about something and you make perfect sense, but they're not going to admit that. They're going to say you're talking crazy. And then they're going to say, I refuse to talk about this. Until you can talk sense, we're done. And they shut it down. And you walk away with no way to clarify, no way to have them try to understand you. You're just shut down, left with the feeling or the impression from them that you're talking crazy. And you begin to doubt yourself. Or you're trying to discuss something with them and they keep changing the topic and don't let you discuss it and develop it. Or they just say, you know what, you've tried to talk about this over and over again. It's constant craziness. I'm done. No more talking about this subject. And they shut it permanently down. So those are all ways of stopping fruitful conversation because they do not allow you to do it, but they make you feel that you're crazy or you're not clear. The third thing that they do is trivialize yourself. So they trivialize your needs, they trivialize your feelings, they trivialize how you respond, your emotions, and how you read things. So they might say something like, you always overreact, you're just too sensitive, and they say you shouldn't feel that way, a normal person wouldn't feel that way, and you begin to doubt yourself, or you get angry over the dumbest little things. So again, you start to question yourself. Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I do overreact. Maybe I make too big of a deal out of things, and you question your perception. So right up front, what I hope you're beginning to see is what is happening here doesn't wear you down in one day or 1 week or 1 month, but they slowly plant seeds that gradually get you to doubt yourself. And that is the effect of gaslighting, is it's such a slow process that you often don't even realize it's happening. The fourth thing they can do is forgetting. So you talk about something and they say, no, I was there, that didn't happen. Where it did happen, but they make it sound like it didn't happen, so they're questioning your memory, and again, you are questioning your own memory. So they can go a bit further and go, you know what? You always are remembering things incorrectly. What's wrong with you? You make stuff up, you're imagining things. Now, they're the one that is lying to you about all of that, but you're believing it as if they're true. Or you start talking about something and they act like they forgot all about what you said before. And so they deny that they were in the conversation with you, and they again say, you know what, I think you're making stuff up. I don't think you're remembering this correctly, because I sure don't remember it. Again, planting seeds of doubt. So it's a very gradual process. So the 16 signs that you can then ask yourself that are indicators that you are being gaslit. Okay, so you can check these off. Number one is that you are in a conversation with your partner, and every time there's conflict or a disagreement, you feel pulled by them to blame yourself for the problems that you're having in the relationship. In other words, they always make it your fault. They never accept responsibility, but twist everything and make it your fault. So whatever you say, they distort it and they make it your fault. So you begin to think maybe they're right, because I always seem to be messing up. And they can give very convincing arguments why you're wrong and they're right, and it's all your fault. So you get that constantly pulled into accepting blame for everything. Secondly, you begin to second guess yourself. So you're in situations and you all of a sudden go, maybe I'm not seeing this accurately. Now let me just stop here and say this. Part of complex trauma is that you're going to have times where you legitimately question your perception because you know it's distorted because you're angry or you're in fear. So that's healthy questioning your perception. What's happening in gaslighting is even when you're not in an emotionally escalated state, you start to question your perception. The times that you normally in the past would have been accurate in your perception, you now question and doubt yourself. So you are having less confidence in yourself. Thirdly, you begin to conclude that maybe they're right and I am too sensitive. Maybe they are right and I make too big a deal out of things. I just need to get over stuff. I let too much stuff bother me. Again, complex trauma, often we do overreact. Gaslighting, they make you question everything as an overreaction. And so it takes it one step further than just the natural consequences that come out of complex trauma. 3 or 4, you constantly apologize. So you are with a friend and you say something and then you go, oh, I'm sorry, I hope I didn't say the wrong thing, or sorry, I might have hurt your feelings, or sorry, and after a while they go, would you quit apologizing? Because you have been trained that you're always wrong, that there's nothing you do that is ever all right. There's always something wrong. So you say something wrong, you do something wrong, so you are trained to apologize all the time. Next one is you feel with that you can't do anything right. So this is when those subtle seeds and messages that have been happening for months from your partner are starting to take their toll. And now you are beginning to believe that maybe you can't do anything well. And maybe you can't do anything right. So you're starting now to look down on yourself even more than normal. You're starting to be harder on yourself than even normal. Next one is you feel very confused at times about what is the right decision. So should I get 1% milk or 2% milk? And you stand there second guessing yourself. And you're confused and you're afraid of making the wrong decision because you're going to get in trouble. And so the most basic decisions become more difficult to make because you're doubting your ability to make any decisions. Then you start lying to your partner to avoid his put downs. So if he said, what did you go to the store for? And you say, well, I went to get milk. All of a sudden you're afraid that he's going to criticize that. So you lie about where you went. So that is now taking lying to a new level in the relationship because you're constantly in fear of being judged by them. And that is a very dangerous place. So you're constantly trying to avoid all of these criticisms that he's going to give you. Then, though, when you're with your friends, they probably saw a long time ago that he was a narcissist and that he was not treating you well. And they might even have seen some of the gaslighting, but you don't want to admit to them that they're right. So you lie to your friends about your partner because you're afraid to admit what you're in. And so you don't want them to even gang up more and say, get out of this. So you're lying and making excuses for your partner's behavior. And that enables your partner to continue gaslighting because you're now making excuses for him. But because people are concerned and people are asking, family and friends, you don't want to keep lying all the time. You don't want them to keep questioning you. So you start to withdraw from your supports. You start to pull away from the very people that you shouldn't be pulling away from. So your world gets smaller until basically the narcissist is the only person in your world. And that is what he wants. Because now, as you pull away from friends and family, they lose their power to influence you against him. And he gains even more power over you. And then you begin to really feel that you're not happy. And you go, why am I so depressed? Why am I so full of anxiety? Why am I so discontent and unhappy? And you're questioning your own inner world because you begin to realize that you're living in a negative emotional place. And that, up till now, has probably been somewhat in the subconscious. You've been unaware of what has been happening emotionally. But now there's so much negative emotions, it's starting to come into your conscious world. You begin to become aware also with that your self-esteem is getting lower. And you think, I used to be so confident around my friends and family. Now I'm constantly full of anxiety and insecurity around people, afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing, I'm going to do the wrong thing. And now you're realizing your self-confidence is getting worse, is getting lower, and you're not as relaxed as you used to be. You're not as happy. And so you realize that you're going to a darker and darker place. And it's not a good place. You see that you're not the person you used to be, but you're becoming a shell of that person, and that person is not a very happy person, is not a very healthy person. And so again, you're becoming aware of it. That takes you further in isolating. Because the less confidence you have, the less relaxed you are, the less you want to be around people because you think everybody else is thinking the same thing as your partner about you. You think they're judging you and looking down on you and seeing you as a failure, and that causes you to isolate, which causes your self-esteem to get even worse. And then you don't think anybody would want a relationship with you, and you don't think anybody would ever give you unconditional love because you're such a loser, and that takes you even further into isolation. So what you can see is there's a snowballing effect beginning to happen as you go further and further down this road of being gaslit. So now you realize something's wrong. But because you've been so influenced by your partner in your thinking, and you've let your partner think for you, you can't figure out what's wrong. You can't say it's him because he's never said that. In your mind, it's all you, but you don't know what it is you've done. And so you enter this very confused stage of trying to diagnose why you're in such a dark place with no self-confidence, no self-worth, and you're just full of anxiety, and you can't figure it out. Then conflict just keeps increasing. And he is more or she is more on you all the time, more negative, more disrespectful, tearing you down, but nothing is ever resolved in the conflicts. Rather, you are always the problem, and they always play the victim. I can't stand living with you. You don't do anything right. Poor me. Who would ever want to live with a person with me? Give me a crown for being such a wonderful person and putting up with you. And that just is what gets fed. His victim mentality, it's all my fault. And that takes it even worse. So the conflict is snowballing and increasing. Some people, as this progresses, their memory actually does become hazy. And what I would say is the explanation for that is what you can realize is gaslighting began in your subconscious world. Once the stress on your subconscious world got so great, it moved to your conscious world. But you weren't able to figure it out or resolve it. So what then happens is the stress keeps building and building in your conscious world with no solution. That begins to affect your memory. So when stress is too great for the brain, it can't keep track of everything. So your short-term memory begins to fail. And so now you do forget details, which gives proof to the gaslighter that you're going crazy. So now you're actually feeding into what he's been doing all along to say you're losing your mind, you're the problem. So again, this is getting to a very dangerous place. And the final piece is you start to gaslight yourself. You don't need anybody else to gaslight you now. You start to question every perception, doubt every thought, doubt every feeling, and put it all in a negative framework. Now you're your own worst enemy.